"You're nothing but a problem," my brother snapped. "This family would be at peace without you," my dad added. I stayed silent, walked out, and now a week later, they won't stop calling me. "Hey, I'm Nate. I'm 28, single, and kid-free." My folks, especially my dad and my older brother Mark, seem to think I'm nothing but trouble. The last time I was home, Mark straight up told me I was a problem. Dad just shrugged and said, "This family would have peace without you." I didn't yell or argue. I just got up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out into the chilly evening. That was 8 days ago. Since then, I've stayed silent, no calls, texts, or even a social media like. But this morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls, all from them. Let's rewind a bit because this whole thing didn't just start last week, it's been brewing for years, maybe even decades. Growing up, Mark was always the golden child, captain of the football team, straight A student, never got in trouble. The kind of kid whose achievements covered the fridge. I was more into drawing, reading, and music. While Mark got praise, I got lectures. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" was practically our family motto. By the time I hit high school, I was convinced I was a letdown. Things got even worse when Mom passed away 5 years ago. She was the only one who really got me, and losing her changed everything. Dad stopped pretending, and Mark took over as the family's moral judge. It was his way or the highway, and I often chose the highway. Still, I tried to show up. I went to birthdays, offered to help with house stuff, even loaned Mark $5,000 for a car down payment and never asked for it back. But no matter what I did, it never changed their view of me. If I disagreed, I was difficult. If I didn't help paint the garage one weekend, I was ungrateful. When I landed a remote IT job and moved into my own place, Dad didn't say congratulations. He just warned me not to screw it up. The latest drama started over something silly. We were all at Dad's for dinner, me, Mark, his wife Lauren, and their kids. I made this homemade tiramisu, and Lauren immediately commented, "Oh, this is alcohol, doesn't it? The kids can't eat this." Sure, there was a tiny bit of Marsala wine, but it was mostly for the adults. I said calmly, "I can make something else next time." Mark muttered, "Always has to be different," and Lauren suggested ordering something else for the kids. Dad chimed in with, "See, this is why you make things harder than they need to be." At this point, I just left the room. Mark followed me into the kitchen and said, "You're nothing but a problem, Nate. You always have been." He said it like it was just a fact. I looked for any sign of remorse, there was none. I walked out to the dining room, grabbed my coat, and as I passed Dad, he added his own remark without even looking up, "This family would finally have peace without you." No one tried to stop me, not even Lauren. I got into my car and just sat there for a while, feeling like I'd been at the funeral of a relationship I'd been trying to save for too long. That night, I packed a bag, drove back to my apartment in the city, and told myself I wouldn't reach out again. The first few days of silence were actually a relief. I got back into reading, hit the gym, watched movies I'd been meaning to see, and even started sketching again, a hobby I hadn't touched in years. There were no passive-aggressive calls or guilt trips, just peace. Then the missed calls started. First Lauren, then Dad, then a couple from Mark. Yesterday, there were 5 more, and this morning, 17. 17 calls, all from them. No voicemails, just my screen full of missed attempts. They're clearly panicking, and I'm curious, but I haven't answered any of them. Something big must have happened, maybe involving Mark. So, I lost my job and maybe Dad had a health scare, or maybe they finally realized how it feels when someone you've treated like a problem just up and vanishes. I'm not ready to call back yet. Part of me is curious about what's going on, but the stronger part of me is still stuck in that kitchen, thinking about my brother's face when he said I didn't belong. And if they're looking for something from me now, well, they might be about to find out what happens when the problem stops playing along. I didn't pick up any calls, I just kind of stared at my phone, half expecting it to start buzzing any minute. When it finally did around noon, I just watched it vibrate on the table. It was Dad again. I muted it and flipped it face down, like it was some kind of ticking time bomb. Whatever they wanted, it wasn't my issue anymore, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. But here's the thing about cutting off toxic people, the silence they leave isn't always comforting. Sometimes it echoes and you end up replaying old conversations in your head, trying to figure out where everything went sideways. I thought a lot about Mom that day, how different things were when she was around. I remembered how she'd sneak little gifts into my room after Dad and I had a blow-up, books, sketch pads, candy bars. She'd step in when Mark tried to give me a hard time as a kid. She had my back. And after she passed, It felt like no one did. So, yeah, part of me wanted to call back. Not because I forgave them or missed them, but because a part of me still hoped they could change. That maybe, just maybe, they realized how harsh they'd been. Then I got this text from Lauren. It said, "Hey Nate, sorry for reaching out like this, but something's going on with your dad. He's been in and out of the hospital since Tuesday. Mark's overwhelmed. Can you call when you have a sec?" I stared at that message for a good minute, then locked my phone. Hospital since Tuesday? Wait, that was like 4 days ago, and now they're just letting me know? After everything they said about finding peace without me, they want me to swoop in when things go south? I sat on my couch, elbows on my knees, trying to slow my breathing. At first, I felt guilty, I won't lie. But that quickly turned into confusion and then something colder, anger. Not just at the message, but at what it implied. They didn't want me around to support them, they wanted me to fix things, like always. That had been my role, right? The one who picked up the slack, covered emergency bills when Mark's freelance gigs dried up, or quietly paid off Dad's medical debt 2 years back. And now that they've driven me away, they're starting to see all the threads I was holding together. Here's the kicker, they hadn't even told me Dad was sick. Found out from a third-party text, from the one person who never had my back when family drama went down. Not a direct call or sincere message, just a guilt trip disguised as a text. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app. For the past year, I'd been quietly covering $500 a month for Dad's health insurance premium. I set up that autopay after overhearing him complain about the costs. Never told him, it was just easier to let him think some government subsidy kicked in. But now, looking at that line in my budget, it felt foreign. That version of me, the one who took crap silently and kept giving out of some warped obligation, had walked out of that house last week and never looked back. So, I canceled the autopay. I thought I'd feel bad, but I didn't. I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Then another text came in, this time from Mark, "I don't care what happened last week. We need to talk. Call me now." No apology, no "hey, sorry we said awful things," just a demand. Like he still thought he could call me to heel like a dog. I laughed out loud for the first time in days. The audacity would have been funny if it weren't so typical. He hadn't changed, none of them had. They weren't reaching out because they missed me but because the glue was cracking, and they're starting to feel the impact. So, I didn't call him back. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notes app and started jotting down everything. So, I was still footing the bill for the utilities at my dad's place, paying for car insurance under my name because Mark never bothered to switch it over, and keeping Lauren on our shared phone plan just cause changing it felt too stressful. Eventually, I made a list of everything, and started cutting ties one by one. If they wanted a life without me, fine, but they needed to know what it truly meant to lose the person keeping everything together. I was halfway through my list when my phone rang again. I picked it up, same number, and this time it was Dad. Hearing his shaky voice caught me off guard, not because he was ill, but because he realized he pushed me away and I was holding all the keys. I let him sit in silence for a bit, just listening to a hospital monitor humming in the background. Finally, he spoke, sounding really weak. "Nate, I know you probably don't want to hear from me." "Yeah, no kidding." I stayed quiet, wondering what he'd say next. He mentioned he was in the hospital with some heart issues they might need to operate on, like he was doing me a favor by telling me. I just took a deep breath and asked flatly, "And now you need something?" He didn't deny it, which said it all. He mumbled something about not meaning what he said the other night, blaming stress and anger. I just closed my eyes and thought, here we go again with the family's excuse for everything. So I told him, calmly but sharply, that I don't treat people the way he treated me. There was silence, one of those moments where you're not sure if someone's gonna lash out or give in. I cut in, saying he always meant it and just never had to face the consequences before. He didn't argue, which was new, but I wasn't done. I told him he didn't want a son but a clone of Mark, and he'd been punishing me for being myself since I was 10. He tried to speak again, but I shut him down, telling him he can't just expect me to help out after cutting me out of his life. There was a sound on the other end that was almost a sob, and for a moment, I didn't feel angry, just hollow. Once, I'd have done anything to make him feel something for me, but now it just seemed too late. He said he just wanted peace, admitting everything fell apart after Mom passed and he took it out on me. That hit hard, not as an excuse, but because it was the truth I'd been waiting to hear for years. But I didn't soften. I told him he made me believe I deserved the way he treated me. That was the worst part, not the insults or guilt trips, but years wasted trying to earn love and approval I never got. Silence stretched out again, Then he asked, "Are you coming back?" It was surreal, the same man who said the family was better without me now asking if I'd return. You could almost hear the subtext, "Mark's overwhelmed, money's tight, they thought I'd." He didn't actually say it out loud, but I could tell by the way he asked, "Are you coming back?" that he wanted me to always be there. I started thinking about my cozy little apartment, that tiny rented space where I didn't feel like a burden, where no one ever yelled at me. I thought about my sketch pad by my bed and my cat, Toby, that I adopted a couple of months ago. Toby would snuggle up with me every night, no judgment, just comfort. For what felt like the first time in years, I felt like a complete person away from them. So, I just said no. It was one simple word, but it felt like it echoed inside me. He inhaled sharply and pleaded, "Please, we're family." And I replied, "Exactly. You've shown me exactly how this family treats those who don't quite fit in the mold, and I'm done trying to make myself fit." He tried once more, saying, "At least talk to Mark. He's trying." I almost laughed. Mark's only trying now because I left. That's not personal growth, that's just panic. Another awkward pause, and I didn't feel the need to fill it this time. "So, what now?" he finally asked, and for once in this whole mess, I felt calm. "You figure it out," I said, "just like I had to when I was 16 and you called me a failure. Just like when Mom died, and you never bothered to check on how I was handling it. Just like every time you decided I was the issue." There was a faint noise on the other end, like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just said, "Okay." No begging, no tantrum, just a defeated, uncertain okay. And I hung up, not waiting for more, not even leaving room for a goodbye. I just hung up. Then I got up, wandered over to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared out at the city skyline. All those missed calls had led to this one moment of clarity, and they still had no clue how much more was about to fall apart. I thought hanging up would be the end, but it wasn't. For the next couple of days, the messages came in waves, some pitiful, some angry, some just plain confusing. First, Lauren sent a long, winding apology full of cliches about misunderstandings and everyone making mistakes. Then Mark called like 12 times in one afternoon, leaving voicemails that swung from demanding I stop punishing them to guilt-tripping updates about Dad's blood pressure and his upcoming surgery. But I didn't respond to any of them. I'd spent 28 years being the family's fixer-upper, the peacekeeper, the unappreciated problem solver they kicked around until they needed me again. They wanted peace without me. Well, they got it, but they didn't realize peace came with its own price, unpaid bills and no safety nets. The next trigger? It hit 3 days after that final call with Dad. It was a Wednesday night, around 10:30, and I was lounging on my couch sketching, with Toby curled up by my leg. A chime came from my email, notice of lapsed insurance premium policy cancelled. Oh, I knew what it was. That $500 a month policy I'd quietly been covering since last year? Yeah, that was Dad's extra insurance. He had no clue it wasn't some government deal. Without it, his heart surgery wouldn't be as nicely covered. No more low co-pays, no more brand name meds. He was going to be downgraded to the figure-it-out-yourself level of healthcare. I took a sip of my tea and didn't even blink. 2 days later, the phone plan got shut off. And then I got a panicked message on Facebook Messenger from Lauren, of all places. "Hey, I think something's wrong with our phones. Can you check the account?" I didn't reply. I just blocked her. Then came the car insurance. I'd co-signed for Mark's SUV, still under my name since he couldn't get a loan on his own 3 years back. The account had been spotless until I closed it. I made one last payment to cover the current month, then canceled my authorization and sent a notarized release of liability to the DMV. Effective immediately, anything that happened with that car was no longer my problem. I even reclaimed the safety deposit box Dad forgot he signed over to me after Mom died. It was filled with important documents, birth certificates and the deed to their old cabin that they always talked about renovating one day. Well, that deed was officially back in my name. They never bothered to change it, never thought the family disappointment would know how to deal with legal stuff. Then I went quiet again and just waited. It didn't take long. That weekend, my doorbell rang. I didn't answer at first. A minute later, there was a soft knock, hesitant, unsure. Then I heard the voice, "Nate, please just open the door." It was Mark. I watched him through the peephole for a moment. He looked thinner, worn out. The usual smug posture was gone, his shoulders slouched, hair a mess, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a guy on the edge. I opened the door halfway, just enough for him to know I was there. He didn't speak right away, just looked at me, and I let the silence hang there. After a long silence, he finally spoke up, "We need help." I nodded because honestly, I had no clue about dealing with insurance, cars, or even the house bills. Dad was losing it, Lauren was losing it, and I'd even had to borrow money from her parents just to pay for groceries. I stayed quiet, letting him keep talking. Dad might not be able to get his surgery now because it's going to be more expensive, and the hospital is pushing us for a payment plan. I just stood there, waiting. He finally looked up, eyes full of tears, and asked, "Why are you doing this?" I let out a short laugh, not loud, just a sharp puff of air. "Why am I doing this? You called me a problem, Mark. Said the family would be better off without me, and I agreed." He swallowed hard. "We were mad. You know how he is," he said. "And I'm done making excuses for him and for you," I replied. "We're your family," he tried. "No," I said. "Family doesn't use love as a weapon, doesn't isolate or belittle you, and then expect you to pick up the pieces when everything falls apart." He looked down, rubbing his neck like he used to do when Mom would scold him when we were kids. "I didn't think you'd actually walk away." I shrugged. "That's the thing about burning bridges, Mark. You never believe they'll go up in flames until it's too late." He blinked, and I think he realized just then that no magic phrase or weak apology would undo years of emotional wear and tear in one doorstep chat. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "Do you want us to beg or something? Is this revenge?" I shook my head. "I don't want revenge, I want freedom. I want peace, the kind you all said you'd have without me. So enjoy it." I started to close the door. He stepped forward, and for a second, I thought he'd try to stop me, but he didn't. "Nate," he said, his voice cracking, "I'm sorry." That made me pause. It wasn't loud or for show, just a whisper from a guy who finally got how bad things were. I met his eyes. "I hope you mean that, not because I need it, but because you do." Then, I closed the door for good. 3 weeks passed without a word from any of them. No messages, no calls, nothing. I thought that was it until a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name on the front. I sat at the kitchen table, opened it, and scanned the first line. "Nate, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I wanted you to know I heard you. I don't expect forgiveness, I probably don't deserve it. But I am sorry for everything." It was from Dad. He went on, saying everything I'd waited my whole life to hear. He admitted he took his grief out on me after Mom passed and realized I was never lesser, just different, and he hadn't handled that well. He said Mark had filled him in on everything, canceled policies, insurance, calls, and how I'd walked away. But then came the part that got me emotional. "I told you once this family would have peace without you, but I was wrong. There is no peace without you, only silence." He wrapped up the letter by saying he wouldn't reach out again unless I wanted to. No pressure, no guilt, just space. I folded the letter and set it aside, looking around my apartment. Sunlight was pouring through the windows, and Toby, my cat, was sprawled out on the floor, blinking at me slowly like he knew something had shifted. I didn't call them, not that week, not the next. But I kept that letter, and every time I looked at it, I remembered something crucial: peace isn't given, it's claimed. And for the first time in my life, I had it, not because they changed, but because I finally did.